Next, let's talk about the origin point of an object. Every object in Blender has an origin point. You can see it as the small orange dot at the center of the cube. The origin point serves as the pivot for rotation and plays an important role when using modifiers. Modifiers can be set up in the Modifier panel found in the Properties panel. I'll explain modifiers in more detail in a separate video. By default, when you add a new mesh, its origin point is placed at the center. The origin point acts as the center axis for the transform tools, which is also called the pivot point. By changing the location of the origin point, you can adjust the transformation axis of the object. There are a few ways to move the origin point. One method is to enable origins in the Options menu and use the Move tool to reposition it manually. However, when the Origins option is checked, you won't be able to transform the object itself. So, after setting the origin point, make sure to uncheck this option. You can also set the origin point more precisely by going to the Object menu, Set Origin. Alternatively, you can right-click to access the same menu when the object is active. In this menu, Geometry refers to the selected mesh of the object. If you select Origin to Geometry, the origin point will reset to its default position. For more precise adjustments, you can use the 3D cursor to move both the origin point and the object itself. For example, let's say you want to move the origin point to the corner of the cube. First, switch to Edit mode, select a vertex at the corner, and use the Pie menu to choose Cursor to Selected. This will move the 3D cursor to the selected vertex. Next, switch back to Object mode and set the origin point to the 3D cursor's position. Now, the origin point has been precisely placed on the selected corner. Since the pivot point has moved, you can now rotate and scale the object based on this new position. Now, let's look at an example where we duplicate the cube and align one of its corners to another. First, duplicate the cube and move its origin point to the corner you want to align. Next, move the 3D cursor to the origin point of the original cube on the left. Since the snap target is the origin point, select the duplicated cube, open the Pie menu, and choose Selection to Cursor. Now the two corners are perfectly aligned. In cases like this, using the Snap option in the Header menu is actually a quicker way to snap vertices together. I'll cover snapping in more detail in another lesson. Finally, let's review how transformations in Edit mode affect the origin point. In the previous chapter, I mentioned that transformations in Edit mode do not affect the object's transform values. This also means that after modifying a mesh in Edit mode, the origin point will remain in the same position as before you made any edits. Be sure to keep this in mind while working,